Hello one and hello all and good afternoon one, good afternoon all. Here live on your channel with Maponga J, broadcasting from Zimbabwe, right here in the land of the gold and silver and everything else between. On your channel here we're constantly discussing African issues, and I decided to take some moment this afternoon, and I went past a church in Harare here, Harare City Center, Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I sat there for some time and checking out some friends and sending my greetings to brothers and sisters beloved in the Lord. And I felt maybe it is okay on a day like today to share a small little scripture, And while I'm sharing this scripture, I want you to put your thinking caps in place so that you don't misplace the message. There is this thing we call interpretation of text, being faithful and honest, of course, to the context where the text is found. And while you are reading the text, you need to be clear, number one, where is the text in terms of its historical setting? And where are you in terms of how do you relate to the text itself? You also want to look into the family interpretation. How do you interpret the text in your own family circles? Take the text again to your business and say, how does the text speak to my business? Take the text again to your community. How does the text relate to my community? Then finally take the text maybe to your country or your continent, and then the world view over. So there is this beautiful view that when you are looking at sacred texts, you need to start from where you are and then expand the interpretation of text until you are able to speak from where you are to where everybody else is. The world view that the external people will tell you what the text must mean to you, rather than you from where you are telling the world what the text means to you, tends to be abusive many times and often. And people get caught up in what is the conceptual understanding of those that are outside of you and the text want to tell you what the text says, instead of you who is in the situation to understand where is the text, where am I on the text, where is my family on the text, where is my community on the text, where is my country on the text, where is my continent on the text. Then it gives you quite a broader way of finding a text and finding the meaning of that text. And for this afternoon, I thought I would pick up with that. Having said that, I thought I would pick up a small little passage of scripture and share it with you on those various levels of interpretation. And the text we're going to be looking at is the text found in the book of John chapter 5. John chapter 5. And I know some of my young friends would come around and say, but you throw away the Bible, you come around and teach the Bible, you are confused and what and what. Relax. I know this text very well, and I've studied it extensively and I've experience in it. But I would want to make an attempt to say, when I look at it, how does this relate to the African people? So be you my traditional friends, be you my economic, my political, my cultural, my religious friends, maybe just drop your weapons a little bit and let's work on this thing. There's something very interesting that you're going to be noticing, or which I've just been inspired to share with you on this passage. I come to you and sharing this word in flesh, but what I would speak to you the words of the Spirit, and those with spiritual ears will hear what I am submitting to you. The sacred literature, as it comes to us, it comes with solutions for the problems that we have. And therefore, those that read it don't have to read it with a dogmatic mindset or theological denominational mindset, which is a conformed way of interpreting the text, which then divorces itself from everything else that is outside of whoever is interpreting it deems it to be. So John chapter 5 tells us that there was a pool of Siloam. And at this pool of Siloam, there were various categories of people that came to the pool of Siloam. We hear quickly on the passage that there were those that were disabled, disabled people that were at the pool of Siloam. And there were those that were, blind that came to the pool of Siloam. We have the lame at the pool of Siloam. We have the paralyzed at the pool of Siloam. And ultimately the invalid, if you must read the story from the NIV, KJV, New International Version, New English Bible. The Messenger would classify them in few different ways. But I would love to stick to this one for this afternoon, which gives us the disabled, it gives us the blind, it gives us the lame, it gives us the paralyzed, and it gives us the invalid. Now, firstly, you need to look into that context and say to yourself, who am I? Or what were they? Firstly, maybe start with that. What were they on the passage? There were these 5 categories. And even the text says there were 5 colonnades. In other words, there were 5 departments or 5 entrance points to the pool of Siloam. So you'd find that one point had the disabled, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed, and the invalid. That's what the text says. Then you take the text and move over to yourself and say, where do I belong on this text? Am I disabled? In other words, I'm able, but circumstances have disabled me. How do I relate to that? And then you come around and look around and say, maybe am I paralyzed? Have I been traumatized to an extent that I've been paralyzed? There are people with great capacity to doing good things, but life has paralyzed them. So you might want to find out, are you paralyzed? Then we have another group that could say, am I blind? Is it possible that all the functions of my body are working? Mind is working. Everything is working, except that I can't see. Then come those that are lame. Those that are lame, other parts of the bodies are working, but one part of the body is not working. Then ultimately you have what you call the invalid, people who have lost value in anything else. So you want to again walk on the passage and say, where do I find myself on the passage? And after you've done that, walk up to your family circle and then find out, do we have people in our family here, in our family circles, who are disabled, who are paralyzed, who are lame, who are blind, and who are invalid? By the time you look at this passage in terms of its contextual positioning, there we now begin to find out, in a community, in a country, as a continent, how are we operating and how are we functioning? Is it possible that we have been disabled, or we have been paralyzed, or that Africans are blind, or that they are lame, or that they have been told that they are invalid? Then when you begin to read through the text itself, you are able not only to find the meaning of the text in where it was positioned, but you also be able to find yourself in terms of where you are. And how does this passage relate to you, your family, your community, and your nation? So that when you go through the text, you find solutions within a sacred text which are beyond the dogmatic and religious and denominational limitations. So there you have it. Firstly, unpack the text in its original context. And when you do that, find yourself, find your family, find your community, find your country, find your continent. And then read through the text to find out what are possible solutions that are already given on the passage, which can relate to those various levels of audiences, and the way you interpret it will then come back to clarify what kind of solutions are readily available. So there was a pool of Bethesda, and there was a pool where people would jump in, and whoever jumped in then was healed. Then you look again at the paranormal circumstances that are appearing on the passage. How does the passage create a solution? The solution on the passage is given by interventions of the omnipotent, interventions of grace, interventions of the paranormal, interventions of the supernatural. You see, for you to understand that, after you have identified your condition is what you are. But for you to move away from your condition to where you must be, it takes an interruption, what we might want to term a theophanic encounter, a divine grace interruption, where your life has been determined to be driven, where your continent has been determined to be driven, where your family has been determined to be driven in a certain direction. But by the strike of grace, something happens within your family circles that changes the trajectory, the function, the operative, the modus operandi as to how your family has been running, and something happens that changes everything. That changes everything. It could be, in the words of William Shakespeare, some are born great, some achieve greatness, or some have greatness thrust upon them. So whether you achieve it, whether you are born with it, or whether you have it thrust upon you, but the day you have it, it transforms everything from where you know it to be to where it must be. That transition is what we want to call the interruptions of grace, the interruptions of the supernatural. In the religious circles, they call them miracles. Some call them breakthroughs. Some call them spiritual enlightenment, or some call it final alignment. When that happens, you then understand that there is a place where misfortunes are washed. The text does not spare us the usage of water on the passage, which Christianity might want to call baptism. Traditionalists is washo, or getting to the river and getting yourself washed. Islam could be rituals of their own. Judaism, rituals of their own. But right there at the center of the passage is the pool. And the pool, there is water. So we begin to understand also in the passage the function of the natural elements in dealing with our physical conditions to unlock our spiritual potential. So there you have it. Water is at the center of the pool of Bethesda, or the pool of Siloam, where if you jump into the water, or if you get washed in the water, and if you contact your physical body, your physical ailment with the water, which has been touched by spiritual interventions, miracles are bound to happen. I get excited right there. In other words, the resources of solving our spiritual problems, some of them are within our physical rituals. Yeah, there you have it. You could have a spiritual issue, but spiritual issues are unlocked by physical rituals. It is these rituals, therefore, that we need to unpack and find out which ones are kosher, which ones are not kosher, which ones are doable, which ones are... But according to the Bible, according to the text, according to the Black Book, you needed to get into the water, and when you get into the water, then you were sorted out. So there's no contradiction, there's no paradox between physical, spiritual ailments and physical and spiritual interventions, so that a person who is blind, who is lame, who is paralyzed, who is invalid, if they can do this ritual, which is physical, and get in contact with water that has been troubled by the spiritual, that their problem on the physical side would be resolved. This is the beautiful equalizer in terms of understanding African spirituality. That here you have a physical or a spiritual problem. There are rituals in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Torah. There are rituals that must be done so that you can unlock the spiritual blessings within the physical action. So the man gets there, and we hear on the passage that the Messiah came past the pool of Bethesda. and he found these people that were sitting around the pool. So in life, in amongst your friends, you need to understand some of your friends are disabled. Some of your friends are paralyzed. Some of your friends are blind. Some of your friends are lame. Some of your friends are literally invalid. The question is, how do you deal with all these people that have various conditions, yet they are attached to you? The pool of Bethesda was a common meeting place for the blind so that they could see. You could have eyes that are open, but you could have eyes that don't see. You could have ears that are present, but you could have ears that don't hear. You could hear also, but you cannot understand. You can be present and alive, but invalid and immobilized. The pool of Bethesda, therefore, for me, works as a place which unlocks the limited to their spaces of unlimitedness. Then, boom, we find a man who has been sitting here for 38 years. I hope I'm talking to someone out there who is 38 years old, who has been sitting at this pool, waiting for opportunities. Countries sitting at the pool of colonization for 38 years. Families sitting for 38 years. Career and professional people sitting for 38 years. Locked up in one place, hoping and wishing that somehow, somewhere, I will also have an opportunity of getting into the pool so that I can also have a breakthrough, maybe a healing, maybe a promotion, maybe a financial breakthrough, maybe a health breakthrough. They sit around there. And I love my other translation, which says, in on the pool, we also had a group of what they called the impotent. The impotent were those that were not fruitful in terms of bearing children. So it is true, therefore, that we have friends also that are non-productive, present, healthy, everything else, but non-productive, educated, but non-productive. Seemingly, they look okay, but they can't produce anything. We have countries that are healthy, full of resources, but impotent, not important. Please take note. They are not important, but impotent. They're not productive. They have the resources, but those resources are not fertile enough. So you have economies that are impotent. You have families that are impotent. You have businesses that are impotent. We have careers that are impotent. We have people that are impotent. Because it's not just a matter of being life, but life is, can you reproduce yourself? Can you reproduce your capacity, your potential, your company, your organization? Can it be fruitful? Therefore, impotence in my world does not only speak of physical reproduction as of bearing a child. Impotence must be understood. Is it productive? Can it return? Can it retain? Can it duplicate? You can invest your money, and your money can be impotent. Because if your money is not able to reproduce after itself, then it's worth nothing. You can have a career, but your career can be impotent. Because if your career cannot reproduce the wealth that you need, then it is invalid. It is non-functional. The passage therefore introduces us to this group of people that are impotent, that are paralyzed, that are lame, that are blind, that are disabled. And all of these people are gathering around the pool, looking for solutions within the pool, looking for solutions in rituals of physical participation to unlock spiritual blessings and spiritual realities. This gets exciting. They all gather, waiting. At a certain time, seasons are important. Timing is everything. You could be at the right place, at the right time, with the right disease, but if you miss the timing, you may just mess up everything else. Is Africa at the right place, full of resources? Is Africa at the right venue, with the right problem, right administrators and right everything else, but timing is everything. Do we know when to jump into the water and risk your life with the waters for the healing of our own nations, the healing of our families, and the healing of our own bodies? This man is asked a simple question: do you want to be well? Do you want to be well? Do you want to be healed? The man is one of my most exciting characters in the entire Black Book. He says, I have no one who can push me. No one who can push me into the water. I therefore learned something very important in life, that for you to make it in life sometimes, it's not always about being gentle with yourself. Sometimes in life, you need people that can push you. You need environments that can push you. You need circumstances that can push you. Look at COVID. It pushed us in a certain direction. Look at Ukraine-Russia war. It's pushing us in a certain direction. Looking at diseases, push us in a certain way. Catastrophes, and push us in a certain way. Therefore, you will not change and transform your life until you find those moments where an event happens which pushes you away from your comfort zone into the place where help must be found. The man says, I am looking for someone who can push me. Find yourself friends who can push you. Find yourself organizations and stuff that can push you away from comfort to challenges that transform your life to become something better. He answers in the most beautiful way. I am looking for somebody who can just push me. Push me. Oh, I wish I had friends who could push me in the right direction, the right pressure towards the help that you need. I have no one who can push me, but anyone amongst us, then we learn the dignity of life. When you find paralyzed people, when you find lame people, when you find invalid people, when you find disabled people, mentally, physically, psychologically, economically, and otherwise, talking to them sometimes is not good enough. Reach out your hand, pick them up by the hand, help them to stand. Now that's leadership. That's leadership. Reaching out, opening up your hand, touching someone, touching an economy, touching a community, and help that person to stand on their feet. And they didn't have to go to the pool. They stood on their feet, strong and able. Here is the most painful passage you'll ever hear in your life. So please fasten up your seatbelts as I'm closing now. The man, when he was healed, stood up on his feet, picked up his mat, put it under his armpit, and started walking home. He walked past the paralyzed. He walked past the blind. He walked past the invalid. He walked past the impotent. He walked past the lame, out through the door to the other side. The one who had healed him stood there. He walked away with a mat underneath his armpit. And all the people that were sitting around the pool waited for the waters to be troubled when he who troubles the water stood amongst them. Now this for me speaks of religion. When solutions are available, when opportunities are available, when the healer is available, when the knowledge is available, and someone has been assisted, stands up and starts walking away from the pool. Tradition, religious tradition, economic tradition, cultural traditions, healing, medical aid traditions and philosophies, family planning traditions, academic traditions tell you you cannot trust something that has worked. You must wait for the program to happen. So they waited at the pool, waiting for the waters to be troubled. When he who troubles the water stood amongst them, they believed more in traditions than in the one who could make things happen in the present. This is the mindset of the African. When reality is available, when solutions are available, we will wait until the colonialist comes back to tell us what to do. We'll wait until the waters are troubled, and then change will happen. Realities of life are stated on the passage. That sometimes people have more faith in systems than they have faith in solutions. Solutions are there. Then they tell you, according to the law, according to the Constitution, according to the Bible, according to the teachings of according my foot. You cannot wait for the waters to be troubled when the water troubler stands in your midst. I wish the blind had walked up and said, me also. I wish the paralyzed had walked and said, me also. I wish the invalid had raised up their voices, me also. I wish the blind, the lame, me also. But no, we don't believe that solutions can come from this fella here. We have this pool. We have lived on this pool. We have more faith on the pool than we have faith on the man that is standing to support us. Find out in your life, when you hear that other people have made it, opportunities have been availed, and they've been able to break through from their limitations. Is it possible that in your mindset, you still wait for your institutions? You wait for your policies. You wait for your programs. You wait for your religious leaders to tell you, no, it will now happen like this. Well, good luck with the waiting. Those that have brains will hear when opportunities are available. There is no reason for waiting, except if I was in my old church, I would be singing also, pass me not, O gentle Savior. If the solutions are right here, there's no need to wait any longer. Rather, join in and get the help that is readily available. So you see, when you look at a passage like that, many of us will just look at it and see Yeshua, Jesus, walks to the pool, he heals a man, and he walks away. And we make a call. Are there any people amongst us who also want Jesus to perform a miracle on them? And I think that's a very, very light way of looking at the text. If you look into the text itself, you should be able to see yourself, your family, your community, your country, and then expand that understanding so that you can think in a global way and apply the passage in a local way. So think globally, but act locally. The man walks out from the pool. The people remain where they are. The helper walks out from the pool. They ask the man on the street, so what happened? What happened? The man says one of the most beautiful things. Whether he's a sinner, he's a devil, I don't know. All I know is I was blind, now I see. Man has helped me. My condition was worse before I met him. In other words, testimony and experience are the best ways of living your life. And if you come in contact with that can transform you, it is your experience that must determine your theology, not your theology dictating your experience. It is your experience that interprets your theology. The man is a devil. Hey, he's a devil. He's a satanist. He's an antichrist. He's this. He's this. Whether Maponga J is a Satanist or he's a culturalist, he's a Sangoma, he's an Inyanga, the bishop, he's what? Whatever you say he is, I don't care. All I know is that I heard words, and when I put them into practice, I've become a better person. Your experience must judge me. Your experience must write your theology. Your experience must determine your dogma. In other words, you cannot wait for those that have other experiences to interpret your life for you as if you are absent from your own life. I don't know who that man is. All I know is that my condition is no longer the same since my encounter. Therefore, my theology is I was at the pool. I met a man at the pool. I did not need to get into the pool. He spoke to me, helped me. Now I am alive and I'm well. Whatever the theology is, I'll leave it for the theologians. But my experience tells me I was in one condition. Now I'm in another condition. With those few words, go back and read the passage again. Go back and read the passage again.